Hey there, and welcome back to Don't Open That Door. I'm Justin, and I will totally freestyle for Zydrate.
I'm Nico, and I would definitely be dead in this movie.
And I'm Dan, the Repo Dan.
Whoa.
Boo.
And we are here today to discuss Repo, the genetic opera. Directed by Darren Lynn Bousman, this stars Sarah Brightman as Blind Mag, Paul Sorvino as Rotti, Alexa Penavega as Shiloh, Anthony Head as Nathan, and Paris Hilton as Amber. We open in the year 2056, and a worldwide epidemic has struck, leaving the world with massive organ failure. GeneCo, a mega corporation, has gained global domination by selling organs and body parts. Now, these organs don't come cheap, but GeneCo is more than willing to let people be on a payment plan. Naturally, there's a catch. Customers who fail to pay their bills are hunted down by Repo men, who kill them and repossess their organs/body parts for GeneCo. It's a delightful introduction, but Nico, what happens?
So, we start with Shiloh, a 17-year-old girl who spent her entire life locked in her house with nobody but her father for company. Shiloh, on her Rapunzel shit, I guess, has inherited a rare blood disease from her deceased mother, and it's dangerous for her to interact with people from the outside world. Unbeknownst to her, though, her father, Nathan, is actually a Repo man himself. And while she rests in her bed, he kills on behalf of GeneCo. And we're then introduced to Rotti, the CEO of GeneCo, who learns that he is afflicted with a terminal illness and doesn't have much longer to live. His 3 children proceed to squabble over who will get the company, but Rotti actually plans to give it to Shiloh. You see, 17 years ago, Rotti was in love with Shiloh's mother, but she left him for Nathan, and he never really got over it. Nathan believes that he accidentally killed Shiloh's mother with a dangerous treatment for her illness, but in reality, Rotti poisoned the treatment. He then blackmailed Nathan into working for him as a Repo man.
I see. Well, Dan, why don't you continue the story for us?
So now Rotti messages Shiloh, and he tells her that he can get her a cure. Along the way, Shiloh runs into Blind Mag, a singer for GeneCo who is actually a friend of Shiloh's mother and did not know that Shiloh was still alive. Rotti tells Nathan to repo Mag, but he doesn't want to, given her friendship with his late wife. Nathan heads home and finds Shiloh and Mag speaking at the house. The 3 of them have a conversation, and Shiloh ends up fighting with her dad. Rotti messages her again, telling her that she can have her cure if she shows up to the genetic opera that's playing that night. So, Shiloh shows up, while Rotti kills Mag. He then tells Shiloh that if she can bring him the Repo Man, he will give her the cure. Nathan shows up, murdering GeneCo employees until he runs into Shiloh, who finds out her father's secret identity. Rotti reveals that Nathan killed Shiloh's mother, leaving out his own role, of course, and also that Shiloh isn't actually sick, but her father has been poisoning her so that she doesn't go outside. Nathan feels really bad about that, but Rotti kills him, then succumbs to his own illness. So now the movie ends with Rotti's daughter inheriting his company, and Shiloh deciding that her genetics do not determine her destiny. The end.
Well, we got a lot to break down here, so let's get started. How does this movie look, Dan?
This movie looks very goth. It's like a goth version of Hunger Games. You know how like in the Hunger Games, like the people, like the rich people, they're all like crazy, like hairdos and styles and stuff. I feel like it's a gothic version of that.
I could see that.
They're all very over the top gothiness. Just trying to say goth as many times as I can.
Of course.
And there's a lot of gore too, a lot. We see a lot of people get chopped open, ripped open. And one thing that I noticed, which is really interesting, the gore looked really good until there was blood in movement. What I mean by that is whenever somebody like was actively being like slashed or something and blood was flying from them, that blood was very CGI and did not look good. But when it was just a body laying there being cut open, it looked really, really good.
Yeah. When Nathan gets cut and he's bleeding and it's like a pool of blood on the floor, I really appreciated the color of that blood, because when blood pools out like that, it does look like that. I thought that was a really cool touch personally. Kind of sound like a serial killer there, but
A little bit.
what I think as
It's
well,
fine.
Dan, you said gothic. I was actually thinking along the same lines. I thought this looked Victorian cyberpunk
Mm.
because there is a really cool scene with Nathan where he kills a dude and it's like up against some neon backdrop. And we do kind of get a scene, and maybe this is just me, but it kind of reminded me almost of like a little bit of Judge Dredd, if anybody knows about that,
Mm.
or one of those kind of classic cyberpunk dystopias where there's a mega corporation that runs everything. It's always dark. The sun never comes out. Like every scene in this movie basically takes place at night.
It's in Midgar.
Yeah, bro. It's pretty much, it's kind of like Midgar. You're right. So I like that. I like the character costumes and outfits. They're all different shades of, Victorian / Gothic dress, which again, I like that. So I thought it was pretty cool. Nico, what were your thoughts?
It is a very, very stylized film, and that is something that is either going to work for you or it won't. It worked for me, and I personally liked a lot of the visuals that were going on in the production here. There were a few moments, though, where it looked like there were just, well, not it looked like, there were these real just sepia fucking filters and tons of different colored filters that just didn't even look like Snapchat, but looked like if you had a cell phone back in 2004 or something, and you used the filter on that. It just looks very, I don't know, 90s. I'm not sure how to describe it really.
One thing I forgot to mention too, real quick, is that the movie opens with, and then there's 2 or 3 other times throughout the movie where we see a bunch of story told via comic book, kind of.
Yes.
And I actually really like that a lot.
Mm.
It looked kind of like, I don't know, the Watchmen kind of style artwork, drawing, kind of dark and spooky a little bit. And I thought it was pretty cool, actually.
Agreed. Now we have to talk about the sounds. Now, normally, dear audience, we would talk about the musical stylings and such in this section, but because, this is a musical / opera, I think we're going to dedicate a different section to talking strictly about the, some of the songs and stuff like that. Let's keep it to more technical analysis here. Dan, how'd you feel about the sounds of this movie?
I thought overall it was pretty good. There was definitely a lot of over the top Foley. Like often somebody would pick up like a pair of scissors and be like, swang, twang, twang. I'm like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
But I actually kind of like that because this movie is very over the top and not at all like serious. And I actually thought that overdone production there actually lent itself well to the film. And I thought the rest of it sounded pretty good. The music sounded good, like on a technical level. There were occasional parts where I thought the vocal didn't quite fit in the mix very well personally, but that's just me.
No, I'm in agreement. I liked the majority of the sounds from a technical level. I thought 1 or 2 of the performances on 1 or 2 of the songs, I was like, on them. But I think you have to balance that with, obviously, Sarah Brightman is infinitely talented. And the scene where, she has a scene in the genetic opera, like the actual genetic opera in the movie. And that was awesome. And I'm a big fan of hers. So I really, really like that. Nico, how about you?
I would like to echo everything that you both said. However, I will say it was difficult to hear at times which characters were speaking, and just because they would be singing at each other, I feel that the audio mix sometimes was clashing instead of helping in certain scenes. And on my part, I watched this on Tubi and the subtitles just weren't at all helpful. I can't speak to any other streaming platform necessarily, but there were parts that I was a little bit confused as to what exactly was being said in a few points.
I had one scene like that. It was when Mag was speaking with Shiloh, and then they had like a real intense back and forth. And there was one moment where like I was like, whoa, I lost it here for a second. They were talking so quickly back and forth. I kind of lost it a little bit. But I do see your point, Nico. So I think obviously the first thing we have to talk about here is the overall music design, talking about some of the songs, like what genre, I guess. I'm trying to find a good place to start. And I guess we should start with, what is this? Is this an opera, a musical, horror opera, horror musical? How would you, if you had to say to an audience,
opera, if you will,
this is what this kind of music is, or this is what this kind of film is, what would you say this was? If you had to put it into like 2 or 3 different categories, what would you say?
I want to preface this by saying I don't know shit or fuck at all about any of this. So keep that in mind. I feel like this is a musical. I mean, it's a movie too, obviously, but like, I say that as opposed to like having something where you're in an audience there, but anyway. I feel like it's a musical, or it could be like a movie version of a really self-aggrandizing album. I don't know.
So I agree with a lot of what you said. I have a slight disagreement. So in my opinion, this is actually an opera, because I think that,
Okay.
one thing that sets opera apart from musicals is musicals tend to have, and this is from my limited experience, I sung Edelweiss in advanced choir in 8th grade, so I know it all. But one thing I really think is musicals tend to have larger portions of dialogue, and this movie is almost entirely sung. I mean, you maybe have the odd line here or there that is spoken, but almost everything is sung or has some kind of rhythm or meter to it. So I gotta say opera. But Dan, I really want to get your take.
Big mad right now.
I mean, I'm inclined to agree with you, Justin. I think that this is definitely an opera, in my opinion. I'm a little rusty on my operatic knowledge. It's been a while since I've studied operas. I'm big mad right now because pre-podcast, Justin's over here arguing with me about how this is a musical, not an opera. And now the turntables have. But anyways, I agree with you. I think that there's 1 or 2 very, very, very short parts where there's actual dialogue. But most of the time when there's air quotes dialogue, it's sung or in some melodic or rhythmic way, like a recitative in an opera. And I also think subject matter, or maybe this is definitely like a tragedy. And I think operas are more tragic than musicals as a whole. Obviously, there are musicals that are tragedies and there are operas that are not, obviously. But I think generally operas tend to lean more towards tragic. But I also think that this is one of those that kind of blurs the lines a little bit. And I can see arguments, one way or another on it.
Yeah, I could. I would never take the argument for a musical, but I totally see I totally see the point, Nico, that you've made, and you alone. But
Preach.
I will say, Dan, that's a good point in regards to the tragic nature, because that's such like a classical opera thing to do, right? Like have some kind of tragic story. And then in the movie, I mean, the movie is an opera that contains an opera within it.
Little meta.
Yeah, hello, Phantom of the Opera. But
little Facebook.
But I will say, hey, there you go. But I will say that everything does kind of line up to be that way. Kind of Nathan, and he thinks he killed his wife, but in reality, he didn't actually kill his wife. It was Roddy. But then at the same time, no one ever finds out that Roddy poisoned her.
I'm kind of mad about that.
I am too. And I don't know. I thought that was kind of weird that never got revealed. But I want to ask you guys real quick, on the horror scale here, how horrific is this movie? Do you consider this movie to fall into or be a subgenre of horror?
I feel like the association with horror is because of the gore. Like, I feel like if everything else was the same, but the gore wasn't as visceral and, in the limelight during the scenes that it is gory, I think this would be classified as, like, not a comedy, but, just something else. Like, fuck.
I will say that I'm inclined to agree with you, Nico. I think that when we're talking about horror, to me, I feel like people use the word horror in exchange for gothic. I think the two genres can sometimes overlap. And for me, this is one instance where I view this so much more as having elements from, again, like dystopian cyberpunk stuff and Victorian stuff kind of clash together in an interesting way. I just don't see a really super, super heavy horror element. Now, I will say that the scenes where Nathan is kind of butchering people or like ripping out their guts, like those individual scenes are certainly good examples of body horror, but I've kind of had the mentality for a while now that having horrific scenes doesn't necessarily mean that you are a horror. And that's just how I feel about it. But Dan, I will secede to your point.
No, I mean, I agree with both of you. I struggle to call it horror. I think I'm going to just because of the amount of body horror. Because I totally agree with you, Justin, that just because you have horrific scenes doesn't make you a horror. But I think there's enough in this that it tips that balance to me. But I also consider it like a drama, like a dark, horrific drama. But yeah, I don't know. That's another one where I could see it being classified as horror, but also drama, dark, whatever.
Tragic comedy or something, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, that's one for the streets to decide. But I want to ask real quick, what kind of music was in this opera / maybe musical? What kind of music was in this? Nico, I kind of want you to row the boat here.
So in the trailer for this, the first one that came out, it was heavily marketed as a rock opera. And I think in the stylings of previous rock operas, we can think of the Who Quadrophenia, is it? Fuck, no, Tommy, not Quadrophenia. But other such albums that have those sort of sounds. You could also think of Queensryche, their... Oh God, what's the name of that fucking album? Operation Mindcrime. That's the album. I think there were times when it kind of fucking whips. I'm not gonna lie, but there were other times where it definitely wasn't operating on full steam.
I thought that for sure there's the definite, like rock, definite thing. I don't think you call it anything else. I had a conversation with Nico where I lamented the guitar tone and sound. I wanted, like, at points a more beefy guitar to kind of go with some of the, I don't want to say heavier vocals, but more kind of gritty vocals that the father was putting out sometimes. And Nico did remind me, like in that styling of, like if this was on the stage or something like that, you wouldn't necessarily have that kind of guitar accompanying that. You know what I mean? Like the voice is supposed to take front stage, so to speak. And bearing that in mind, I like it. I thought it was pretty good. I definitely, it's cool to hear something. It wasn't all rock all the time. They had actual kind of operatic moments as well. Like you would think of classical opera. They had those moments in the film as well.
Moments.
But Dan, I want to get your sixpence here.
Yeah, I'd say it was industrial goth rock.
Ooh, all the subgenres.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, you guys pretty much said everything already. I thought that the instrumental parts just kicked ass to me. I had a lot of fun listening to them. There were parts where I was just like head bobbing, just grooving.
Head bobbing.
Like, yeah, it was dope. It was dope.
Bobbing and weaving.
The vocal lines, I was on and off with. Sometimes I was like, okay, cool.
Those were the biggest fluctuations for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Or sometimes like they would start singing something and do it for like 2 or 4 bars. And I'm like, as soon as I finally like understood the melody and like caught it, they were on to the next thing. And I was like, fuck, like if they had doubled it or something, then I would have been able to ride with it for a little bit. So I was kind of on and off with that part, but even the instrumental parts underneath the vocal parts, I still loved most of them.
Now, I do want to add one thing real quick. I forgot about it, and Dan, you reminded me. Lyrically speaking, I think the movie was largely fine because, again, everything is kind of in song or in some kind of context like that. There are 1 or 2 lines back and forth, and I was like, boo. I was like, y'all could have come up with something else. Y'all could have come up with something else to say. But those are few and far between. And it's difficult, like to actually tell a story entirely through song. Sometimes it can be a little more difficult than it seems on paper because you can't just
For sure.
sing everything that happens. Sometimes the characters are singing about how they feel, and then that has to relate somehow back to like the forward motion of the plot. So it was kind of
And
a
then my
difficult task.
dinner finished in the microwave.
So I gotta ask, why is this a cult classic? Because this has gained a little bit of a cult classic following over the years. This was released, I think, in 08 or 09. And why is this a cult classic? Why do people come back to this? Because we were recommended to watch this. And why? Not like specifically why, but like in the big why. Why?
I think we had this conversation about another movie recently. Phantasm.
Was it Phantasm?
I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to kind of go along my same answer a little bit there, if I remember it, is I think this movie, horpora, if you will, is a little bit
Oh no, it's back.
over the top, sometimes a little cheesy, kind of weird, different, off the beaten
Campy
path.
as fuck.
Campy.
Yes.
All of those words and descriptors you can use, I think those kind of lend itself to cult classics. And I feel like you rarely see a cult classic that is of high production value and like incredible writing and everything, So I think that all those qualities lead itself to being a cult classic.
Agreed. I think one thing you really need to have to make a cult classic is you got to have something that very, very, very deeply appeals to people. And it's not going to be a large number of people. It's going to be a smaller number of people. There's a movie. It's not horror. It is, I guess it's kind of sort of like it's more musical than opera, I'd say, but it's called Tokyo Tribe.
Yes.
And I'm
I love that movie.
big fan of Tokyo Tribe. I'm searching for the smallest. I'm searching for the smallest bit of horror so that we can have an excuse to review it on the pod. But I think that I'm a big fan of that. That's a cult movie. That's not something that has like this massive mainstream following, like I'm into old kaiju movies where it's clearly dudes in rubber suits, like lighting themselves on fire for my entertainment. Like it's niche, and
we should totally review Gojira.
Yeah, we could, right? But it's one of those things where I think it also kind of, because, there's not like a lot of people it appeals to, it drags you in even closer because you feel not a sense of ownership, but it's like, this is mine. Like, like these are my people who like this. Like this is for me. So I think that's definitely relevant. And I can see that because I can kind of almost visualize, who would be into this movie? Like what other bands do you like? What kind of music do you generally like? Like how many My Chemical Romance albums do you have? Like, come on, bro. There's overlap there.
You say that like it's a bad thing.
Hey, listen. I like that song, I'm Not Okay. But carry on. Get it? That's another reference.
Yeah.
So
well done.
Nico, your thoughts?
I think this is a movie that just screams fun. This looks like something that was a blast to make and a blast to be in. And it looked like the people who were in it were having a good time. And I think that shows when, from time to time, it's just like that extra little 2% that makes the chemistry a little bit better, even though there were times when the actors weren't pitch perfect, shall we say.
Yeah, I see that.
To your point on that, real quick, I actually read, I don't know if it's true or not, but that Paris Hilton was so into the role and had so much fun that I guess they had to make some cuts due to budget restraints, and I guess they were going $50,000 above budget. So she went out and booked a gig, like an appearance at some place for $50,000 that she put right back into the movie.
That's awesome.
That's actually pretty
good for her.
That's actually pretty cool. I love hearing about that kind of shit where it's like people cared so much about it that
Yeah.
they put their own shit into it.
Yeah, and then one
Like-
of the directors, I can't remember who, but like did not want her to be in the movie at all. And then finally he like succumbed to like letting her audition. And after the audition, he immediately was like, yes, she has to play this role.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? I thought it was her, but then I was like, nah, no way. I was like, there's a 0% chance that Paris Hilton would be in this
Mhm.
movie. And then all of a sudden, nope, it's actually her. Oh my God. I have misjudged you. But
She's perfect for the role.
yeah, she was really good in the role, I will say. So I want to talk about themes. And there's one major theme that I think is pretty relevant today as well. But the concept of a massive corporation just taking all your shit, I think that's kind of a fear that we see in a lot of kind of horror or cyberpunk things. But I mean, real talk, you fall behind on your payments, people will take your fucking house. Like we saw that. And even, you know, in the pandemic, we saw a lot of people who in some places, you know, they froze certain types of rent payments. They did certain things. But I'll tell you, in a lot of other places, a lot of people didn't catch breaks, even if they lost their jobs or even if things happened. Like people just
Yeah.
didn't catch breaks. So this movie, I think, kind of takes things one step further because it's not just losing your personal possessions. It's losing your, you know, what do you have that can make me some money? Organs. And I know that in some places there are, you know, like certain criminal gangs that might even, you know, they might do that. Like if you owe some money and you can't pay, you might wake up with like one less liver, bro. But any other themes that y'all could pick up in this one?
Capitalism bad.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I think that's kind of the big boy theme here. Dan, how about you?
I think this movie also dives into parenting.
Yes, for sure. I was gonna say that.
Yeah, I don't quite know exactly how to more specifically target that, but you know, obviously, like Shiloh's a 17-year-old girl. There's a little bit of teenage angst there. There's one song breakout that
They had a teenage
yeah.
angst song.
That part fucking ruled. I'm not gonna lie, that was fucking awesome. Probably my favorite scene. Just suddenly an actual fucking band appears in the room. How fucking rad would that be?
But you know, the movie definitely got me questioning whether Nathan was a good or bad father. I think probably overall I would say bad, but I think that he tried to do things for good reasons, maybe. I don't know. Again, I don't know that this movie is saying this is bad parenting or this is good parenting, just so much as here is.
He was
Thing.
poisoning her though, right?
I think so.
Yeah, you could say that from a certain point of view.
Yeah.
But I will say this.
I was like, wait, hold on.
But I guess what I meant was the whole like trying to protect her and everything and like not telling her certain things about the past in order to protect her. I'm not saying it's right, but I think it came from the right place anyway. It's just maybe wrong implementation. I don't know. Especially when I juxtaposed.
Yes.
Posed, there we go.
No.
When I
guys.
juxtaposed it with Roddy, and I was like, oh man, because he almost seemed to be trying to be a father figure to her, but he also did some really fucked up shit too. And I was like, would he have been a better father than Nathan was? And I was like, well, I don't know.
I thought that the reveal was going to be that she was actually Roddy's daughter.
That's what I thought too.
That they were going to say that. Now, I do think that Nathan was a pretty high-key bad dad, only because he dead-ass poisoned her and then gaslit her
That's
and made
true.
her think she was sick and couldn't go outside.
You know, I guess I didn't really think
Yeah.
about it that much. And yeah, when you put it that way,
And
I was waiting the entire time for like, wait, where's he going with this?
no, you're right. You're right.
and I definitely kind of feel that now, granted, yes, right? Like he had definitely some issues to deal with, definitely got traumatized off the fact that he thought he was responsible for his wife's death, even if he really wasn't. He thought he was.
He was certainly very charismatic too, and that helped him come across as more genuine for
That's
sure.
true.
And I guess also that, you know, like, I guess they're living in Cyberpunk 2056 and he's really not trying to let anything bad happen to his daughter. I mean, the local dealer seems pretty nice.
Want my family back.
Like,
I'm sorry.
what's his name? Grave Robber? Like,
Yeah.
dude Now, granted, dude is the worst thief ever because he could have just gotten away, but the man had a compulsion to shout graves at the top of his lungs so they get caught by the cops.
He also says when he's introducing himself to Shiloh, he says, "Come here, follow me," and then he like goes in after her.
Eh.
Which that's not how this works, bud.
I was about to talk about Mag, because Mag could like project her eyes.
She could realize the real lies.
Yeah, she could. She could. Now, real quick before
Except
we
for
get
the
in,
fact
go
that
ahead.
Shiloh was alive. She didn't realize that lie.
Wow, that's true. That was a lie she didn't realize.
You could say it got by. Bye, 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 bye.
That was one of my favorite songs back in the day.
Really?
It's one of my favorite songs.
Look at that.
Honestly.
True.
Now, speaking of favorite songs, what was your favorite character and scene in this film?
I think my favorite character was Paris Hilton's character,
Anna.
Amber.
Amber. Wow, I said that so fucking confident. I was like, it must be Anna.
I liked her the most, mostly because I didn't like a lot of other characters.
There you go.
But I think one of my favorite scenes, this is a really stupid thing to be a favorite of, but she performs
excited.
a little bit in the genetic opera, like
Yeah.
in the opera. And she had got like, she's addicted to this drug, but also like getting surgery and shit.
Right.
And she had a botched surgery done. And her father, Roddy, got her a new surgery, like a new face, like right before the opera. But when she's performing, you can see like the top of her head, like the skin is like coming off. She's having a wardrobe malfunction on stage, except instead of wardrobe, it's her face is falling off. And her face literally does fall off. And for whatever reason, for that whole like 30 seconds, I was just like, as soon as it clicked in my head that it's like this version of a wardrobe malfunction, I was like, I think that's pretty funny and clever that, there's all these wardrobe malfunctions you hear about on like, big performances and shit. And this is just that,
Whoops, dropped my face.
So I thought that was kind of funny. But I also did like a lot of parts of the music. So I can't name a specific song or a specific part, but there were just, again, parts where I was just headbanging.
Mm-hmm. Nico, how about you?
Yeah, I had a fun time with it throughout. I've already mentioned my favorite scene, but my favorite character was definitely Blind Mag. I thought she was just like kind of fucking rad. She had cool looking eyes. She could project and do "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope" with her memories and shit. She could like sing and do all kind of cool stuff and just had a good design. She had a cool design, and I was a fan.
Despite the fact that he's a little bit of a shitlord, Nathan was my favorite character just because I liked the juxtaposition of father versus when he would sing one way, but then when he was the repo man, he would kind of get a little more intense and he would, sing like that. I thought that was pretty cool. I also really dug just the fact that this man does work, yo. Like he just comes through and just murders people. Like you gotta
Work.
Yeah, pretty much. He like listens to that while he murks people. But my favorite scene is during the genetic opera. At the start, there's a part where like the audience is testifying how great GeneCo is. And all these people are popping up and like, yeah, they gave me this and they gave me this. And then this one woman jumps up and then she's like, they took pity on this single mother. And now I look great in public. And she like rips off her shirt and just like titties everywhere, I guess. And I was just like, I did not see that coming. Like, I did not see that coming. This movie does not have like a lot of nudity, really. It's not that kind of movie. So the fact that just like randomly popped up in the end with all the other stuff that was going on and them talking about how great GeneCo was, I was like, that's pretty funny. That is pretty funny. I
liked
that.
the one right before her, where it's this lady who was like, I fucked up my liver, but thanks to GeneCo, I can drink whatever I want. Oh, okay.
So yeah, I like that whole little thing where they're all like testifying there. So on to the what would you do, and this one's going to be brief like somebody's draws. I want to know, in this particular movie, if you had a song that you would sing, what would your song be about?
What would it be about?
Like, what would your song be? Like, what would your song be about?
Can it be a song that's like exists, a real song?
Yeah, it can be a song that already exists. Yeah.
Oh, it would definitely be Bring Me to Life for sure.
Oh, shit.
Okay. All right. That's fair. That's fair. Nico, how about you?
I think I would just be like actively memeing on myself as a way to try and just satirize my very existence for living in this hellscape when I'm already so chronically ill. So I would probably just be going, somebody once told me the world's gonna roll me.
I see you. I see you. I would, well, first off, Nico, I'll actually say you may not be so sickly.
You got all your sickly parts replaced.
Yeah, you get all your sickly parts replaced.
Hmm.
So you might actually be okay. You might be
Maybe.
okay. Now, for me, it's kind of a slightly deeper cut, but shout out to the legend. Master Ace has a song called Unfriendly Game. And he relates, kind of, like certain aspects of a drug / kind of gang lifestyle to football. And I feel like I would just kind of do that. But instead of it being, like drugs or gang life, I'd relate like what the Gene Co is doing to something else, basically. But that would be my inspiration for sure on that. But now I want to talk about the critic review. So lay it on me, guys. Where do you think the critics put this one on Rotten Tomatoes? What score do you think we're looking at?
Pretty fucking low.
Thoughts?
I'm gonna go on the other side of this because last time when I was just one above, I was nowhere near correct. So I'm gonna say 60s or 70s.
All right. Nico says 60 to 70s. Dan, where are you at with it?
23.
Nope. This one is sitting at 40% from the critics on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wow. Equidistant.
Audience is sitting closer to where Nico's at a 73. So I want you guys to tell me just your really quick general thoughts and what score you give this one.
I think this is a fun movie that you shouldn't think too much about. It is something that is going for aesthetic and vibe more so than other horror movies, or I think even most, considering that this is a opera musical thing. Anyway, it's not something that I think is going to be winning any Pulitzers, but I had a fun time with it. I'm going to give it a 69.
I'd be shocked if something like this won a Pulitzer for sure. Dan, where are you at with it?
I agree with Nico. I think it was a fun time. And the first maybe 15, 20 minutes, I was like, man, this sucks. Like, I don't like this. The music just didn't do it for me. And I don't know if it was just the environment that I was in or hadn't quite gotten the movie. But after that, I kind of started getting into it. And I actually enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty cool. I'm going to give it a 70.
So I had to do some soul searching on this one.
Understandably.
I am typically not in this position. So it's tough for me. It's really, really tough for me. The only thing I can relate it to is this. There are some, I guess some video games or maybe some movies or something like that. And I've always hated it when they picked somebody who just wasn't into that genre to review it. Even horror, Like I hate it when they fucking get people who don't like horror to review horror movies. And then they rank it super low. And it's like, well, obviously, because you don't fucking like horror. And that really irritates me. And I kind of feel like that's the situation I'm in right now. I will say that this kind of movie is not my cup of tea. It's not my cup of water. It's not anything. I like nothing about this. Like, this is not my thing. But I can still see that this is totally something that would appeal to like a subset of people. I'm just not in that subset. Like, this is just not made for me. And to be blunt, not everything is for everyone. So I'm at a tough point here because I feel like there's like my personal feelings towards the movie versus what I know the movie could be for other people. So bearing all of that in mind, I'm going to give this one a 65.
Wow, that is much more than I was expecting.
But I will say there's like the biggest asterisk on this that I've ever given a film, because if you are into this kind of thing, if this kind of camp, this kind of thing is right up your alley, you're going to love this. You are going to fucking love this. Like, they made this for you. You are totally going to enjoy this. If you're someone like me and this is not really up your alley and this is not really your thing, you might take that score way lower. But I think I have to be fair to the movie and I have to try and appreciate it for the qualities that it has. You know what I mean? Like, I can't just shit on the movie because it's not something like a genre that I like. Like, I think that'd be unfair.
I mean, to be fair, I also think the movie is like a fucking mess. Like, to be perfectly clear.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at with it, realistically. And that's kind of like my trying to be unbiased as possible score. Does this get a recommend from us?
If you're in for a wild night, yeah, go for it. I say yes. I say
Yeah,
yes.
fuck it, honestly. This movie's a goddamn experience.
I'll do it for Sarah Brightman. Yes.
Would you call this magical? I vote yes. Because this, like I said, movie, it's fun, but holy shit, it's held together by threads sometimes.
Fuck. I don't know. I'm going to say no.
I guess I'll say no too.
Close. Very close.
Fair enough.
I was gonna say no anyways. The only reason I say no is because I do feel like it's kind of slightly, ever so slightly, doing this joint the slightest of injustices, because I do think it is a little bit separate from something like fucking Troll 2, where Troll 2 is just a fucking clusterfuck.
I mean, yeah, but I
No,
would
I see
also
your point,
watch
though.
a musical version of Troll 2, to be real.
I feel like Troll 2 is the pinnacle of magical.
Yeah.
You know, like nothing, like if that's the bar that a movie has to hit.
Oh, no.
movie's gonna hit.
That's not the bar, but I'm saying, I guess, like the realm that
I
it's
got
in.
you. I got you.
Okay.
So, no. But does get the recommend. I'm assuming no Golden Seal today?
Nah.
Fuck no.
All right, then. So if you like what you've heard, or if you're a fan of this movie and want to let us know how wrong we are, drop us a line. We're on Twitter and Instagram at DOTD Horror. We're also on Facebook, Don't Open That Door. And you can check out anything we've done, every episode, on our website. That's dotdhorror.com. But till then, keep yourself safe. Sing a little song. And as always, dear listener, don't open that door.